But one thing I like to email is some kind of link for the YouTube video if people want to watch that later. So hi everybody. If you're watching the recorded version now, I've just started it. So okay, we have 13 people here today, which is a good number. I know that a lot of teachers, this is a really busy time of year. You're finishing probably your grades at school. You've got a lot going on with your students. You might be starting some kind of summer school or some other training. We have something, I'm going to type a word in the chat just so you can see what I'm talking about. We have something that's called, and I don't know the name Peruski or anything, but we call it teacher burnout. So I put that word burnout there. And burnout just basically means we've had so much education and so much learning and so much teaching and this and this and this that we get tired and we just want to take some kind of break or something like that. And it happens every year, and it's a very normal thing. I'm not mad at teachers who have this. However, I'm very, very happy that 14 of you to be here with me today. So, Rakmiet. I'm
Ben,
not going to waste your time. Yes, please.
Ben, may I ask you?
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about Canvas course.
Yes.
May I attend just your sessions and won't enroll on the Canvas?
Yes. Great
yes,
question. Is it my goal? Yes, my goal.
My goal.
Okay. It's a great question. The answer is there's a short answer and a long answer. Okay. I'll give you the short answer first. The short answer is yes. If you want to just come to my classes, you can do that. That's fine. The longer answer is more complicated. So if you come to my classes, it is no problem at all. You're welcome to join my sessions, and you can receive a certificate afterwards for attending. However, my sessions are based on that Canvas class. And so if you want more information, more resources, and they also have an additional certificate, then I would recommend taking that course too.
Okay. It's connected to the words with burnout, and that's why I don't want to attend.
You're feeling burnt out. I understand. I understand you. I understand you.
Because there are a lot of tasks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. If you have to choose something, I'm glad that you can be here with us because I think we can interact with each other in really interesting and enjoyable ways on this material. So thank you for that. It's true for everyone. There are choices we have to make, and I know people are very busy. So this is great. We're up to 19 people. I'm really happy about this. John Silver, who you might know or might not know, he is the Regional English Language Officer, or RELO, for the U.S. Embassy. He's kind of my boss. He's one of my bosses. And he's back in America right now. And so he asked, I just talked with him this morning. It was his nighttime, and he wanted to know what kind of success I've been having here in Kazakhstan. And this project is the first thing I brought up because I enjoy so much what we're doing. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to get right into our work. So I'm going to share my screen first. I think that's probably the most useful way so that I can share with you a couple different things. So we were looking at, this is the Canvas page. And if anyone still has questions, I think I only got 2 questions from participants this week about how to enroll in Canvas. But I know that that is a challenge for some people. You're welcome to ask me questions and I can try. Today we were going to talk about Module 2, which is about technology for teaching reading and writing. Now I had told you that really I was mostly interested in getting through the reading section, which is kind of this first part here, up to about this part. I do actually have in the PowerPoint presentation today some materials about the writing section as well. But if you didn't finish that yet, do not worry, okay? As long as you finish that by Tuesday, you will be able to contribute in a good way to our online discussions, okay? So something to notice here, if you're, I have mentioned this before, but maybe you missed it or did not understand, if your internet is slow, and actually mine is quite slow. I was kicked out of a meeting this morning. My Wi-Fi was too slow to keep me in. So I understand. If it's your situation, it is my situation too. We have an option here that if I look at this module 2, I can actually, here it says, please download the transcript so you can take notes. If I click this word transcript, it should take me, it will take a second here. I have a downloadable PDF, and you can see this actually just downloaded for me. And here, if I cannot, for some reason, watch the video, or if I want to watch it later, or if I only have internet in one place and not at home, I can actually download this text. And this text has everything that the people who are presenting, these teachers, will say. It has all dialogue, okay? And so I'm not going to miss any information. I'm going to show you one more time. That's where it says transcript, right? So it's not just this part right here. It's any of these, right? Text readability tools, transcript, okay? So each one of these has that, okay? So I think that's really useful for us. I am going to get a little bit into asking for feedback on how the Canvas is going in a moment. If anyone needed it still, give me just a second. I think I'm going to, here, I can do this. I'm going to erase some of this. There we go. Okay. I've sent this to you before, but I'm going to send it again in case anyone doesn't have it for some reason. Okay. That is the main page for all of our sessions. Now we've done session 1, session 2, session 3, which was last time. There's not much in session 3 because it was mostly breakout sessions. It was sessions in which our teachers were talking with each other. But now we're on session 4, which is also on this page. Okay. Now, right now it says it was on April 3rd because that's when I did it the first time, but I will update it so it also says May 22nd. Okay. Here you've got all the material we'll be using today. This has links to every website I'm going to talk about, that every website that is actually discussed on the MOOC in Module 2, as well as the PowerPoint presentation, which we'll look at today. Okay, so any material that you want to look at later, if I talk too fast, or if I miss something that is important to you, or if there is something that is confusing to you, you can actually access it all on that site. Okay? All right, so I'm going to get into each one of those materials in a little bit here, but first let me start us off here. Reading and writing tools. Okay, so here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to start off by kind of checking in on how everything is going. I know Maigul already mentioned a little bit that teacher burnout. I think she's probably not the only one who feels that way. And so we need to make sure that we're all kind of in a good mental space for this stuff. And if there's something I can do to change that or make it better, please let me know, and I'm happy to help you. Okay, we'll look at that in just a moment here. We're then going to get into the reading tools. There will be more than what's on this list right here, but these are the big ones I want to talk about. Now we've looked at the American English at State website before, but I'm going to look at it in greater detail with you today, especially the part of it that has lots of reading sources on it. Okay. We're also going to look at Voice of America again in connection to reading tools. We'll talk about what readability tools are. If you've been following in the second module, that word readability should look familiar to you. And then we'll talk a little bit about fan fiction, which is a very interesting feature of this, this module that I think it would be easy to skip. But I want to actually stop and talk about a little bit, okay? After that, we'll be talking about writing tools. And like I said, I'll probably talk more about the reading tools today, and anything that we don't finish, we'll do on Tuesday with writing tools. But I will talk a little bit about the writing tools too. We've already talked a little bit about Google Docs. but I want to talk about kind of how we can bring the writing process online, different editing tools that we have, and very importantly, how to make a rubric. Now, a rubric is a way that we can assess or score written and spoken work. Okay. I don't know the name in any other language, but you will know it when you see it. I'm actually going to show you today how to make a rubric really easily for free online. Okay? So, first thing we need to do is check in. Okay? And I thought there's some stuff that we haven't really talked about yet that is actually really important. So, you might have noticed, I haven't gotten any emails lately, but I've gotten emails from teachers before about this. You might have noticed that I use a lot of pictures, like this picture, or let's see, this picture, right? And some people wonder, how do I do that without having copyright problems, right? How can I do that legally? Or am I just stealing pictures like other people might? Well, I don't steal anything. I don't believe in that. So I do it legally, but I'm going to show you where we can legally get the pictures that we can use for our PowerPoint presentations and for our online presentations generally, so that you will not get in trouble for using them. Okay, that's going to be one thing that I show you early on today. Another thing we'll talk about, because it is a problem for a lot of people, I know not everyone uses Zoom. In fact, for our next session, we will use a different program other than Zoom, I think. If not next session, then the one after that. I want to show you two more platforms. One is called Jitsi and one is called WebEx. I prefer Zoom, but one reason people don't like Zoom is that there are privacy problems. Okay, so I want to talk about dealing with those privacy problems on Zoom, and I want to talk about maybe copywriting and how to do copyright safe images. Okay, so let me just ask you right now, I'm going to take us into the Zoom meeting features, but in the chat box, if you use Zoom, if you're currently using Zoom, why don't you tell us what problems have you had with Zoom? What problems with like privacy? Have you ever had someone come in who wasn't supposed to be there? That kind of thing. Okay, I will write that in the chat. What problems, if any, have you had using Zoom? I know that this is a common problem. I actually had something, sort of a problem with this myself. I'll tell you a little bit about that as well. But I'm going to take us here first, okay? So if I go to Zoom, I'll tell you what happened. 2 weeks ago, I was doing a session for high school students, and I made a couple of mistakes with this. I will admit that I made some mistakes, okay? The first mistake was I did not know all the students. I had 80 people attending, and I only had some of their names. I didn't actually know the students personally. They were coming from all over Kazakhstan. We had people from Sayran. We had people from Karaganda. We had people from elsewhere. And so I didn't know the students. And I was not really being very safe about who came in or who didn't. I just kind of let everybody in. And I had something happen, which is called Zoom bombing. Okay. So I'm going to type that in the chat box. Let me make sure I'm not missing something here. Yeah. Okay, so Nargiza is saying it. When there's people who are not in the group I teach. Exactly. So this is called Zoom bombing. Nargiza, I hope this didn't happen to you, but I'll tell you what happened to me. And maybe it will sound familiar to someone, unfortunately. For the first half of my class, everything was fine. And then some more people came in, and I knew that something was strange. Because they didn't have first and last name. It's maybe just says Vladimir, or someone came in and their name was Philip Kirkorov. I thought, well, that's not really Philip Kirkorov, so what's going on? And they came on and they started to play very inappropriate music and say bad words in Russian on our screen. And it became and draw on the screen as well. and it became very difficult to prevent this from happening once it started, right? So I'm going to show you today two different things. I'm going to show you how we can stop someone from coming in if they are coming in, and also what we can do if they're already in, okay? So we need to go to, on admin, user management, okay? Oh, here, I'll let this person in. Great. Okay, good. So other than people chatting with each other privately, so far good with Zoom. That's good. I'm just going to give you some kind of some advice for moving forward, okay? If you haven't had this problem, that's great, and I'm happy for you, okay? So here's the first piece of advice that I have. And I'm just going to keep an eye on the chat and make sure I'm not missing anything here. See what that says. Sometimes students draw on the screen. Okay, so I'll show you how we can deal with that too. Sometimes we want them to be able to, but sometimes not. So let me show you what we don't want to mark. So I can write any name for my meeting I want. I can make any time. There's no problem at all. Okay. If you want, you don't have to do this, but you can require people to register. That way someone actually has to fill out a form to get into your meeting. That should prevent some people from joining your meeting who you don't want to. Okay, so if you want to, you can click this registration. Okay, you don't have to, but I don't usually, but you could. Here, this is very important. One mistake I made when I was Zoom bombed is I was using my personal meeting ID. This means that anyone who has this ID number can join not only the meeting that I'm making, but any future meeting I have that uses this ID number. And so it's very easy to steal this number, type it in, and just join my meeting, right? And so this is not a good idea. Don't use your personal meeting ID. Always have it generate automatically. This will create a unique meeting page every time, and so you won't have those problems, okay? Always generate automatically. That's my advice, all right? Another thing we really want to avoid here, enable join before host. This is a very bad idea. We want to remove this. Why is it a bad idea? It allows somebody, before you start your meeting, it lets someone else get in there. And so you don't have a chance to approve who should come in and who should not come in. So not only do we want to stop people from coming before the host, so we should check this no, okay? We also want to enable the waiting room. So when you joined, you might have noticed you weren't in the meeting right away. I get to choose who comes in and who doesn't, right? And so I always click this as well, okay? So those are some of the things we want to mark, okay? Then a few other things. If I go to setting, and if you don't want people to draw during your meeting, if that's something that bothers you, there are some interesting, so I've clicked on settings here. There are some interesting settings that might be good for you, okay? And let me see here if I can find where they are. Okay. Screen sharing, if you think that you might have some strangers who are going to share inappropriate pictures on their screen, you can actually turn off screen sharing so that you're the only one who can do that, okay? I usually keep this on because I work mostly with teachers who can share with each other something useful. But here, if I want who can share, only the host, right? Or all participants. So I would say probably only the host, unless you really know your students, okay? Another one, if your students are drawing a lot and you like it, that's great. But if you don't like it, you could turn this off. This is annotation, okay? This allows us to draw. This also allows students to draw. And so I would turn off the whiteboard and annotation. Those would be two things I could do to prevent students from drawing if I didn't want that, okay? And I think that's about it. Those are the things that we can do. If you're working with students that you don't know very well, maybe it's another teacher's room. Another thing that you can do is you can allow for co-hosts. So let me see if I can find that. Yeah, here, co-host. Allow the host to add co-hosts. That way you have multiple people who can actually remove somebody if there's a problem. Okay, so I think this is another good feature to have. These are some good considerations if we're using Zoom. I'll show you a little bit about Jitsi and about WebEx in future sessions, okay? But for now, I think this is enough. Good. If this hasn't happened for you, I'm very happy for you. I hope it continues to go well for you. We've had some problems in Kazakhstan about it, so I'm just, I always try to be sure, okay? Great. The other thing I wanted to talk about, just because I know people are interested, is copywritten images and how to legally bring in images. So there is something, first off, pictures that we take on the internet are not necessarily free, okay? Probably most of us know that. But if we take something without asking for permission first, it's quite possible that we're stealing. And we may not even know it, but we might break some kind of rule. Happily for us, there's something called Creative Commons, and I'm writing this here now, okay? And what Creative Commons is people share things online, pictures, videos, whatever, and we're allowed to share and use those without any copyright problems, okay? So we're not gonna have any problems at all. There is one site in particular that I love for these pictures. So I'm gonna take us here now. It's pixabay.com. And you've maybe never been here, but I love this one. We have almost 2 million pictures that are totally free to use. You're not going to have any problem. We have photos, graphics, even videos. And so I can search anything I want. Let's say I'm doing a presentation about English and technology. I will search the word technology. Okay. Now here I have lots of pictures that I can use. Some are better than others. That's pretty weird. I probably wouldn't use that. But this looks pretty good. Here we've got somebody hard at work on a computer. Or if I'm trying to talk about storytelling on a phone, that might be a good one. These are safe to use, copyright free, no problem at all. Okay. Now, this stuff at the top, this is different. Okay. So you want to get down to this section. But we have all these free pictures that would be great for talking about technology, okay? And that's just one option. So this is pixabay.com, okay? And it's a really great one if you're looking for useful pictures in your class, that don't have copyright problems. There is one other site that is useful. I don't use it as much. I tend to use that one. But there's also this. I think it's Merlot. I think this is the Merlot I want. Yes, great. So Merlot is another place where I can get Creative Commons materials. This is stuff that is safe to use as well. You're not going to have any problems with any of this material. I think I might be on the wrong Merlot though. Let me check here. If you just search the phrase Creative Commons, you can get stuff as well. Oh, that was right. Okay. So there's lots of good stuff. I would mostly just go with that Pixabay though. Okay. So if you're looking for something, you don't want to break rules, that's fine. Those are the kind of things we can do. Okay. Now, next we've got module 2. So we just finished module 2, or a lot of us did, unless you're feeling some kind of burnout, which is again totally fine. But hopefully we are pushing forward with module 2. Let me know in the chat box now, are you having any problems accessing our MOOC page, or are we okay? You just let me know. I'm going to move ahead, but I'll be checking to see if anybody has any questions or problems. Okay? I'm going to move forward now with some reading tools. Okay? And you'll notice this, there's kind of a pattern here. This will be a session where I do most of the talking, and then in the next session, you'll do most of the talking. I'll put it back in breakout sessions, okay? That way we can interact with these materials. So getting into reading tools, it's really important. I think one of the things that comes out of the MOOC is this idea that with the internet, students can actually start to select their own material and pursue their own interests. And that this is actually a huge step in English language learning. And so we want to make our students kind of autonomous learners, which is a big word only meant to express that they're going to be able to do this on their own, right? And so we want to talk about how to keep our ideas and keep the key ideas of a text while maybe changing the vocabulary so that our students are actually at an appropriate level, okay? There are two sites that are really good here. One of them is the Voice of America, and one of them is Learning English. But we also have the American English website, and I'm going to take us there now. So here is American English at State. We've looked a little bit at this. I'm really glad that everybody's saying it's fine. That's great. Let me know if something's changed. That's wonderful. Okay, so if you followed the MOOC, you'll know that in resources, we have kind of a useful section here called Teaching the 4 Skills. And if I click that, I've got materials on speaking, reading, writing, and listening. And what you might be amazed to find is that there are entire textbooks here that would be great for student reading. This is one that comes up in our MOOC, and I think it's one that's actually particularly useful for us. It's called American Teens Talk, and it's great because it has the interests of our students already in there, because these are people who are the same age as our students, or roughly the same age, who are somewhere else in the world, okay? And for each one of these, I can download the full text if I want, right? I can do that right up here. I can download the whole thing. Or if I would rather, I can actually go to an individual person. Like, let's say I want to hear from Michael, and I can download Michael's interview, or actually I can get his audio, okay? Let me see what I always try to keep up with our chat. Okay. Yeah, oh, great. So Gulshera says that if someone wants something about teen talks, she's got it, okay? Great. This is a free book that we can actually download as well. So in addition to what Gulshera's got, we've got this here too. Okay, great. You've got a presentation. Excellent. Great. Okay, so here, in this interview, Michael talks about playing sports with his friends, fishing, and living in Switzerland. I can click on this, and quickly, I'll have a 2-page article, okay? And it has some questions. What have you been doing this week? What are you doing in school? What do you play when you play with friends? There's a fishing pole, right? And so good stuff. Also, some vocabulary words that maybe come up here in our text, and some good discussion questions. So it's a reading that we could then use for discussion. What are some of the discussion questions we could ask? Well, how is Michael the same as you? How is Michael different? If you had a day to spend with Michael, what would you do? Right? Lots of good questions here. Let me see what's going on in the chat. Sorry. Oh, good, good. Okay, presentation. That's good. Okay, and so we have a lot of good features here. And I can also download the audio if I want.
What have you been doing this week?
I've been going to school and playing outside with friends mostly.
What are you doing in school?
We just finished writing a grade test.
So it's pretty fast. It's a challenge for sure. But this is something that you could use. You can actually, if I click these 3 dots, I can download this audio. And the audio goes with, this is the audio of that interview that Michael has. So you could actually do kind of a listening practice with your students as well. But there's a lot of things we could do with this, right? We could take this and have students write letters back to Michael. You could have students compare what's the same and what's different about them and Michael. You could have students take these questions and then ask themselves. So there's a lot of different kind of jumping off points that we could use with this book. And if you want more activities, there's even a section here in the book that lists possible activities, right? So you can see there's a bunch of different potential ideas we could do. Yeah, so this is here. This is just one of many books that we have in the American English site. And so if I go back to the Teaching the Four Skills section, that's one of them, downloadable, totally free. All of this is free. I've also got lots of classic literature. So if your students are interested in getting some literature, there's lots of different stuff here. Short plays. You could have people act out plays. It might even be fun through Zoom chat to act out different roles, right? Could be really fun in doing the different speaking parts. This is a good one. One of my favorite writers, O. Henry. And O. Henry is famous for having surprising conclusions to his texts. And so this is a writer from a long time ago. His text is not very easy, right? If I want to, let's see, I'm going to read Gift of the Magi, one of his most famous. I could go here. I've got the audio that I can download, right? There's actually some questions and an answer key that come with. So I'll just click this and quickly show you what this looks like. Here we've got different worksheets that would go with this text, okay? But more than that, I've got the text here, and I can do anything I want with this, right? So this is not an easy text to read in some ways. It's not very long, but it is pretty challenging. The vocabulary might be difficult. And this is where I think we could use one of those readability tools. We could have the students read this, and once the vocabulary is at a level appropriate for our students, they could actually try to change the conclusion. You could remove the ending and ask the students, how does the story end? Try to write your own ending, right? They could actually kind of write an ending and share with each other. Just one of many fun ideas that we could use with this text. Now, like I said, this text is not incredibly easy. And so we would want to be careful with the vocabulary. We're going to get to that in just a moment when we talk about readability tools. Okay? This is about how we can keep the idea of the story while maybe changing some of the vocabulary. Okay? So I'm going to show you how we would do this. There are two readability tools that I really like that come up in the MOOC in Module 2. One of them is this readable.com, and the other one is the readability test tool, okay? So I'm going to show you how this would work. It says test by direct input. I can go here. I could actually put in the website if I wanted to. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in here. Okay, now it's going to take a second, but you can see readability. What do they have for us? They tell us how many words, number of sentences, how many words are complex, that 13% of the words are considered complex, okay? And so then they end up putting, this is actually my Grammarly on here, but they can kind of show us the difficulty level of this. I could try to make this simpler too. I could also, on Readable, I could do the same thing. I click on Test Your Readability. I could put this in here. It's going to take a second. Okay, but it's telling us what level we're at here, different levels, spelling issues, grammar issues, okay, readability issues. And so then we have different phrases. The ones in blue especially are kind of phrases that might be difficult for our students. And so what this does is it identifies the reading level of a text so that we can identify what words we might need to change to make something easier for our students to read. Okay? So that's what a readability tool can really do. Okay? I'll show you how we would use this in a moment and how we could change the text. I'm going to do that by showing you some other sites that I really like. Okay, so we've got Voice of America and Voice of America Learning English. We've looked at one of these the other day. We looked at Learning English at voanews.com. I really like this one. And here, you've actually got text that this has already happened for. What a cool mask this is for people that want to eat in restaurants during the coronavirus. They could wear this mask. What an interesting mask. I've never seen it before. But here we've got a text that has already had pre-identified vocabulary. Now, don't worry too much about vocabulary yet. I believe it's module 4. We're going to be talking more about vocabulary in the future, okay? But what this does is it has simplified a text and then pre-identified the vocabulary for our students. And so this is a great website because we can actually search by reading level, right? So I could find the articles at the intermediate level or at the advanced level or at the beginning level. I can't always do that though. If I go here, this is the main VOA page. These articles are for anyone. In fact, they're often written for native speakers, okay? And so here I'm gonna find an article. This seems like a happy story. Students rescue wasted farm crops for food banks. Something about saving food for people. And so I don't have to copy all the text. I can just take this. This is voanews.com. And I can just take this text. I can copy it. I can go to my readability tool. Go back here. Test my readability. And I put this in. Oh, I need to go to URLs. Score a URL. There we go. Because this is a website. Oh, it's going to be tricky like that. Okay, that's fine. Sorry about that. I can do that. I can definitely do that here. Here we go. Calculate readability. Okay. And so we can see this is at a pretty high reading level. You've got to be about a 6th grade level native speaker. Okay. And so difficult one. Okay. Yeah. And so what we could do, we would want to find articles that are at the level of our students. Once we've done that, we could start to look through and try to identify vocabulary. Like I said, we'll talk about that in the future once we get to that module, okay? But we could use these reading websites with the readability tools to try to identify the words that we need to change, the words that might be difficult. And so what becomes difficult? A lot of times idioms are difficult. A lot of times verbs are difficult. Those are kind of some of the really big words that the important words in sentences that if we don't have, our students will struggle, okay? And so those are some of the websites where we can get leveled reading, if you want to think of it that way. I'm going to ask you a question in the chat now, and I didn't have you prepare anything today, but I am going to ask this question because I'm interested in what you might have, okay? So give me a second. I need to figure out where my chat box is. Oh, good. We've got it. Okay. Oh, good. Wow, there's lots of stuff. Okay. Cool. Sorry, I missed all this chat. Okay. Yeah, good. Your students did a play for this, a classic, right? Are they divided by levels? They're not necessarily, but you can actually check the reading levels using those readability tools, okay? And I agree the tasks for the O. Henry works are great, okay? Dictogloss, there's a reading session called Dictogloss in the American Teen Talks. Okay, those are pretty good. Firuz, what is a Dictogloss? I'm familiar, but could you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, I think everybody now hear me. Yes, Dictogloss, it's just not a session, but just a way how to make good readings and good understanding for students. It's just like preparation of 3, 5 sentences. Teacher reads the sentence two times at normal speed. Then students first listen only. And in the second, students listen and take some notes for themselves. Then students could stand up from their groups and then they move to the other place and write down all sentences just to make the whole clue sentence. And then teacher shares the original version of students compare the version, noting that the gap or maybe if they have any kind of mistake.
Yep.
It's
Exactly.
actually, it's not from Nancy Ackles. It comes a little bit faster, but Nancy put it here.
Yeah. Thank you, Feroz. So Dictogloss, it's a very useful tool we're going to talk more about that when we talk about, I guess, listening tools. It's probably better for like the listening stuff, but it is good. And it's exactly like Feroz was saying. You would kind of read something to students. They would have to take notes, and then you would read it again at a normal speed, and they would try to kind of fill in some of those gaps and try to reconstruct the text. This is sort of what I was talking about with TED Talks and TED Ed also, kind of the note-taking stuff. But yeah, really great activity. I agree. Thank you. Thank you. And so let me go here in the chat. I need to get back to our chat here. Right. So roadtogrammar.com. This is kind of what I was going to ask you. I'm going to ask it here. What are some other good sites for leveled reading? Okay. If you're looking for reading at various levels. So my favorite, I'm just going to put my favorite here. I've talked about this before. It's learningenglish.voanews.com. Okay. But I'm interested, what are some other sites that you think are useful for leveled reading? Okay. And you feel free to share with me. I'll get those in an email to us, okay? But the readability tools, why could we use those? Again, we can check the level of a text that we're giving our students, identify, is the vocabulary too difficult? Is it not? Where are students at with it, okay? There is more information about this in the MOOC, okay? The next thing I want to talk about, this is probably the last thing we'll have time for today, is fan fiction. Okay, so there's some really interesting stuff in the MOOC about fan fiction, and I would highly recommend, if you haven't gone to Module 2 yet, to give it a look, because I think there are some great ideas here. One of them is kind of connecting back to that O. Henry story we were looking at. I'll see if I can get us back to that. Do I have it here? Here, this story. You could take a text from a particular time period. And so a text that was written 150 years ago will use different language than what we use today. And with fan fiction, what you're doing is you're having students respond to a piece of reading. And you can do this any way you want. But if you want them to change the conclusion, as example, or to write a sequel, like a second story connected to it, you could have them keep the same language, the same rhetoric. And so they would have to study what vocabulary is commonly used in this literature, right? And so it's a really good grammar exercise in that way. Okay. You could do it for genre writing. You could have students try to write a mystery or try to write an adventure. For any one of these, you could use some short story, probably from the American English website, as an example for students to build on, okay? And this can be done using any writing as a basis. So I'm gonna share with you 3 ideas that I think are pretty fun right now, okay? And these are all kind of different things, and I'm open to hearing what other ideas you have as well. We'll actually go to example 1 here first. These examples came from a great workshop that I attended about a year ago, offered by the University of Iowa. Not the same university that did this MOOC. It's a different one. But it's called the University of Iowa, and they're famous for their writing program. And so even though fan fiction is connected to reading, it's a writing activity as well, right? And so here, I'm going to make this bigger so you can see what it says. This first activity is called Through the Villain's Eyes. So a lot of times the stories that we love as children are written from the perspective of a hero or a good guy, right? But there's always the other side too, okay? So what you would want to do is students should think of one of their favorite stories, and it should be something that has a clear villain or bad guy and hero or good guy, okay? Then in the Zoom chat, if you're doing this online, the students would actually tell each other kind of a summary of that story. What happens in the story, okay? But now comes the fun part. Now comes the fan fiction part, okay? The student would have to retell the story, but from the point of view of the villain. So if I'm writing, let me see, I'm just going to give you a couple examples in the chat here, okay? If I'm writing, let's see, 3 Little Pigs. I don't know what this is called, Poruski, but there's 3 pigs and a big bad wolf. Now I would want to write the story from the wolf's side, where the wolf is actually telling the story, okay? And in fact, there's a famous version of this. I'll find it here. I don't know what it's called. Yeah, the wolf side of the story, right? And so, yeah, the big bad wolf, my side of the story, a classic one, right? And so this is actually the wolf telling the same story about chasing and eating the pigs. And so just one example, okay? Another one that I like to use for this is Kolobok. A lot of our students know the story of Kolobok, this little bread roll that escapes and finally gets eaten by a fox. But I would have the students tell the story of Kolobok from the fox's side, right? So now they have to think about, and it actually changes the perspective and their perception of these different characters, okay? So that's one idea, okay? It wouldn't have to be a children's story. It could be a movie they like. So I don't actually watch Marvel movies, but I know about them. And there's this character Thanos in the Avengers movies. A lot of students are amazed by this character, and so you could actually retell the story from Thanos' side. So what this does is it allows students a little bit of self-selection. They're actually choosing the material they want to work with, right? It allows them to focus on a story that they care about and like, and they can do it from another character's perspective, which means that they need to write and think as that character. And so you could encourage them. What language would this person use? Would they be using big words? Would they be using small words? Would they be angry a lot? Maybe we need to use a lot of exclamation marks, okay? This kind of thing, okay? So that's just one idea for fan fiction. You could write through the villain's eyes. Here's another one, and this one is not exactly a reading activity. This is more like a writing activity. But I think this is helpful not just for students, but for anyone having a problem. You could call this conflict resolution. So if you're having a problem with somebody, maybe someone has a baby brother or baby sister who's messing up their clothes too much or something like that, or a friend that they're not getting along with, or parents they're arguing with about something. This task encourages students to think of a conflict with a friend or family member that they're currently having and to write from their own perspective. So again, I'm summarizing my experience. But once I've summarized my experience and what I want out of a problem, this is real life, not fiction, right? Now I need to imagine, what is the other person thinking? Why does the other person behave in a way that I don't like, right? So what this does is it allows us to understand and appreciate the perspective of someone we're having a disagreement with. You could actually say this is like therapy, right? But what this does is it allows us for kind of group mediation, some peacekeeping from the other party's side, and we can talk about understanding someone else's motivations. And so there is an element of fan fiction to this as well, especially with students who are maybe having a difficult time during quarantine. This kind of thing has a very helpful, I think, emotional outlet to it that might be beneficial for our students. Okay, I have one other activity for us here, and it's this one. And so again, what we could do, this is on, you would do this on Facebook or Vkontakte, or I guess you could even do it on Instagram or something like that. You can actually, I like to go where the students are, right? And so students are already on social media. I guess you could do this with TikTok or some other program students are using as well. I'm going to show you on Facebook because it's the one I'm the most comfortable with. But I could take a classic character and go to social media. So I'm going to log in here, see what I can find. I'm going to create a page. See if I can do that. Here are pages. Okay, and I can make a page. And I can do this for a character. Okay, so I'm going to click on community or public figure. We'll get started. And the name of my page, again, I was talking about Kolobok. I'm going to put Kolobok here. Oh, I can't use the exclamation mark. There we go. And a category, fiction, I guess. Here we go. Personal blog. And we'll just do that. That's fine. Doesn't really matter. But what I'm doing is I'm creating a page representing Kolobok, almost imagining that Kolobok actually has a social media presence, right? Let me see what the chat's saying. Yeah, Kolobok's a fun story. I agree. Really good one. That's kind of why I'm using it here. Okay, now I've got Kolobok here. I'm going to skip this. I don't need this. Although we could have the students actually put up pictures as Kolobok. But what I want to do is I want to get here. Now I've got Kolobok here. And I can actually create anything I want. I can make posts. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a post here. Let me see what I can. Create a post, right? Here we go. And then I can write anything I want. Okay, so let's see. Okay. And so here, it's almost like I am doing social media engagement as this character. And so what the students could do, this is a way of students to maybe demonstrate their comprehension of a fictional story. They're actually able to represent each other. And this could get really fun, where if there are multiple pages out there, maybe someone else's character is the fox and they start talking to each other and making comments, right? And so it's just one idea, but I actually think using Facebook and social media to create pages for these imaginary characters, and our students have to write as those characters, is a really fun way to do fan fiction. Okay, so I also have some good stuff about writing tools. Okay, we talked a little bit about Google Docs last time. I'll talk more about it in our next class. Something that you should know, I'm going to go ahead and share this now, okay, in our chat. Give me a second here. We go. Okay, this website I've just shared with you, I used to be a writing teacher professionally, and so This is full of my writing workshops and materials. If your students are interested in learning how to write an essay, all of these materials and PowerPoints and everything are totally free to use, okay? So I'm really interested in the writing process, and you're welcome to use these, okay? We've talked about Google Docs, and the last thing I want to share with you today is RubyStar. And so this is how we can make a rubric. This is actually not something that gets mentioned in our module. So I'm going to get into this here with our last few minutes. But before I do that, if someone has to leave early, I understand. I'm going to go ahead and share this here. So for our next session, I want you to think about your students and your class context. How could you integrate any of the reading and writing tools from Module 2 into a lesson? So I want you to bring ideas and thoughts about this to our next session, and we'll actually use those in breakout sessions together, okay? We will do that on Tuesday at 11, okay? And if there's any questions, you can ask them here, and I'm happy to answer. I am going to use a little bit of time now to show you how we could make a rubric, okay? And what a rubric is. So probably somebody has questions about even what a rubric is. I'm just going to take us here. This is what a rubric looks like. It's a way that we can score writing or speeches that our students have done based on different features. Maybe the grammar used, vocabulary, their organization, the quality of ideas. There's a lot of other stuff we could use, right? So what RubyStar does is it allows us for free to make a really nice rubric. Yeah, exactly. It's an assessment list with criteria. That's a great way to say it. Yeah, great. And so I'm going to show you RubyStar here because I think it's a really good one. The good thing about a rubric is it makes scoring something very easy, or at least easier. The bad thing about rubrics is they take a long time to make. And so we're going to try making one now, okay? Create a rubric, and I can create one on anything. Let's say I'm interested in a writing rubric. I'll click on this. Oh, what's going on here? Never had this problem. Oh, maybe I need to log in. That's fine. Okay, so here you might need to sign in. It's a pretty simple thing. Sorry, I missed. There's apparently something in the chat I didn't see. What's the chat say? You use a summative assessment with criteria. That's great. That's great. Yep. So these are pretty classic, right? And so for us, we're international. So we're just going to put 99999. That's all they want. Okay. And I'm going to log in. Oh, I need a password. Okay. I don't know what's going on here. Well, I'm having a problem. What this site should do, this site seems like it's being kind of weird right now. Maybe I'll have to show you guys this next time. I'm sorry. What it does is it allows us to quickly select different features that we want to see in a rubric. And I can show you one that I've got already. This is one that I made for a conference, and I was using RubyStar to make this. So I was able to kind of quickly create and just copy and paste different qualities that I thought were important for assessing the submissions from these different teachers around the region for this conference, right? And so that's what rubrics do. RubyStar is a good program. I don't know why the website's not quite working today. But anyway, I think that's good. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. I will share some information in email. I'll also make sure that this recorded session is available for you. You definitely need to change rubrics according to your tasks. I think that's a good idea as well. With the readability tools, probably the best thing to do, really with all of these tools, the best thing to do is to play with them yourself. Try the MOOC and then use those resources yourself. But I'm happy to try to work with those with you as well. We will start, when we look at the vocabulary tools, we'll go back to readability so that I can show you what we can do with different reading levels as well. Okay? If there aren't any questions, thank you very much. I'll see you on Tuesday. Try to finish Module 2 by then. We're going to share ideas that we have from Module 2 in breakout sessions. Okay? So that's it for me. Rakmiet, everybody. I'm going to get back to our meeting. There I am again. Hi, everybody. And that's it for me. So thanks, guys. It's always really nice to see you. And I promise I won't talk very much next time. It's your show next time. This was just introducing the material. So. Bye.